Hey besties! How are you? I hope you are well, or as well as you possibly can be. My name is Jasmine Kylene. I am a spiritual counselor. I'm a journalist. I am a 26-year-old who's feeling mighty reflective today. So for context, today is the full moon in Leo, and I was born on the full moon in Leo. Yes, 26 years ago in 1996, I was born on the full moon in Leo, which, I mean, if you know anything about astrological placements, I'm just like the loudest. I annoy myself. Like, if you're ever at a point where you're like, wow, Jazz, you're being really Jazz, like, same. It's my inner dialogue as well. But it's also my superpower, and so I'm just feeling really, I'm feeling really loudly myself today, and I wanted to talk a little bit about where I have arrived at 26. I just turned 26 a week ago. And there's a lot of moving parts of my life. I just got my first tattoo. It's still in its bandage, obviously, so like you can't really see it, but it's a little like yin and yang, all emotions are good emotions, little vibe. It was my first one. I'm also going through like, not really a breakup. You know when like you break up with someone that you were never with? I'm also having like a lot of moving parts in my career and like really exciting ones, and I'm thinking about moving back to Spain come April. So like there are just a lot of things that are kind of calling me to be really present and aware of where I'm at internally and externally, and I just kind of wanted to talk about where I have arrived at 26, reflect a little bit on like what I have learned thus far, and hopefully I can mirror back to you what you are learning, what is kind of like next step on the themes of lessons of advancement, of evolution that you were on, and ultimately have this to reflect back on for myself. I did a video when I turned 25 things I learned at 25, and like it's so crazy because I remember feeling so loudly in myself at that time, and now I'm like, oh girl, you had so much more to go. And so I'm sure like 28-year-old me is watching this and she's like, I think the first thing that I want to just even comment on is the fact that I've been watching a lot of home videos of me when I was like 5 or 4. I don't really know. I was taller than I was supposed to be, so I never know what age I am when I watch things.
You can't too cold. You gotta walk that way. Well, walk off that way. Walk over there by the over there. Jasmine.
Shake your bag. Wash this up. Shake your bag. Show me what you're working with. What is it? Is that a spider?
Yeah, well.
It was a spider?
Mm-hmm. Hey, what's your name? Huh? What's your name? Well, don't get too close. I can't. Now I can't see.
It's gone.
All right, I'm gonna shoot it again.
But I'm cold.
I was watching videos of my younger self, and I was really steeped in gratitude because I watched her be so curious, so passionate about whatever was in front of her, so able to say whatever she wanted to say in that given moment, and to just be so radically against doing anything that her body did not want to do in that given moment, and not in like a dark or heavy way, but like in a, if I don't feel like doing that thing, I'm not gonna do that thing. She was just so immersed in her curiosity, her exploration, and it's funny because I think I've been on this like journey of self-discovery and self-betterment for a very long time, and I think for a very large amount of it there was this idea that I had to figure out who I was and I had to arrive at this idealized version of myself, and as I stand in who I feel to be the most authentic iteration of me, I realized that I've simply just returned to exactly who I was before all of it, which I think I touched on a few times in most of my videos because I talk a lot about inner child healing, but it's just so important to know that if you are lost, stay there. That's the best fucking place to be. I wouldn't trade the parts of my life where I was lost for anything, because it's in that state of limbo. It's in that transitional state where we get to really try new things and taste new flavors, and really through the hard parts figure out what we don't want and what doesn't feel right, and then through those like really joyous parts what we do want and what we do want more of. And you know, I wouldn't trade the parts of me or the parts of my journey that I felt incredibly lost in, my adolescence, at all. But I will say that it's funny how I was kind of searching for this external idealized version of me, and now I found such an exhale in arriving at, honestly, just the return of who I've always been before I thought that there was a version of me I had to arrive to. So if there's any like nugget of wisdom that I can give to, I'd say 19-year-old me, 18-year-old me, would be to A, stop living for the approval of your mother and whatever boy was important at that time. To stop fighting against the current and being so mad at being lost, but ultimately to realize that like who you are trying to get to is who you essentially are underneath all of your shit and underneath all of the worry of when am I gonna get to where I need to get to, which is another point. And really what I think has brought me so much peace and allowed me to be in just the state of gratitude for being 26. And I want to pause that and say, I am so grateful and immersed in my self-love, and that doesn't at all mean that life is like easy right now. Like I'm sitting with a lot of like grief in my heart, also expansion, also just like things that I'm worried about, things that I'm confused about, you know, days when I'm just so fucking excited that I saw a ladybug fly by, and then days when I'm like, literally do not talk to me, I'm cold and I'm distant, but I'm standing in a state of like acceptance for all of it. By the way, sorry if this is all over the place. I don't have any notes written down. I usually do because Capricorn Mercury, but I was like, no, let's just talk, babe. But yeah, when I say that I'm in a good place, it's not because everything is good, but rather that I've accepted wholeness. I think that, and I learned this during an interview with Tracy Ellis Ross and Oprah, which was life-changing, but she talked about how she spent a lot of her life, Tracy, I mean, chasing or striving for perfection, which I've found that I've done for a lot of my life. And things really shifted for her when she instead accepted or chased or just accepted her wholeness. And how that's translated for me is understanding that within my wholeness, within my completeness, within my innate worthiness, and just unconditional self-contentment, I get to allow a lot of juxtaposing feelings and truths exist at once. So I am someone who is like, I have an adoration for my solitude and my alone time, and I'm also lonely. And like those two truths can exist at once. And I am someone who is so warm and loving, and I'm also cold and distant, and I can kind of be a bitch. And I've hurt a lot of people, I've broken hearts, because I'm like sometimes very selfish. And I'm also incredibly selfless, and I show up on a dime for those that I love. And so it's important to see and acknowledge and take accountability for your shadow, but ultimately understand that it's that depth that makes you, that shades you in, that gives you, you know, that ability to connect deeper to the people around you, the experiences around you, to grow and evolve. I think if we just kind of stayed in this like flatline place in life, where's the excitement there? Like where's the, you know, there's no learning or growth there. If you don't confront what's ugly, and if you don't let yourself meet those like little deaths that happen throughout life, it's so important to like release who you tell yourself you are when you reach a point where like that version of you and a thing or an object or an opportunity don't quite align. Like let yourself shift a little bit, let yourself meet the little deaths that inevitably are where the soul dwells. I think it's so important to like just release control of a narrative you've written for yourself, because you don't realize how stuck you can get there, and to instead let yourself move through awareness that you have shadow, you have light, and neither should be demonized nor glorified, but rather integrated and understood to be like what gives you just like the miracle of existence. I think for so long I was running away from like my own shit, and now I'm just kind of understanding that like it's within my wholeness that all of that exists. I'm incredible. I'm someone who never takes away any energy. When I walk into a room, I add nothing but laughter, and I'm special. I'm a special ass bitch, but I'm also kind of an asshole. And I don't use that as an excuse to be an asshole. I use it as a fuel for betterment, but ultimately acknowledgement of like where that came from, why that is, and how can I instead fuel me being cold and distant as someone who actually has the ability to observe their emotions and not drown in them and be the water bearer that my Aquarius ass is supposed to be. I went off on such a tangent that I forgot what the original point was. Oh yes, okay. So I think what has like changed my life standing in 26 is realizing that things can come to you and that there is no version of me to arrive at. And what I mean by that is that if I reflect on like 22-year-old me or 21-year-old me, I think she really put on a pedestal the version of me that I would arrive at when I had the career that I wanted and the body that I wanted and the relationship that I wanted, and when I was, you know, at peace in my mental health and like all of this stuff. I really was like, once I get there, and I feel like I was constantly trying to convince the world of why I deserved that and how to get that and asking for it and performing for it. And what I have really allowed myself to steep in the awareness of is the fact that you can just stand in this present moment, you can accept this present moment, and instead of trying to convince the world of why it should choose you, you can just choose yourself, and you can choose yourself through the routine that you build every single day. And so I have made it a point to nurture and water this garden that I'm standing in right now by meditating every day and visiting nature and surrounding myself with people that make me laugh and that I make laugh, and watching shows with my mom and eating really nourishing foods and moving my body and hugging my dog and like stopping work when it's time to stop work and like watching something funny and mindless like on YouTube, going for long drives and, you know, allotting extra time so that I can take the scenic route instead of going on the highway, sharing my words, sharing my poetry, sharing the things that I write, the things that I have to say, showing up in the world as like loudly me as possible are all of like the little intricate ways that I nourish and water my garden, and understanding that like you can just, you know, sort of like take care of yourself, and the hummingbirds and the ladybugs and the bees, they'll all come to you. They'll arrive at you because you've raised your vibration to be at a point where you choose yourself. You're not begging or performing for or being in that lack mindset and that scarcity mindset of like, pick me, because then you're just radiating desperation and no one's gonna want that. Who I have arrived in and who I'm standing in and the skin that's concealing me right now is enough, and you have self-contentment there, and you invest in a life where every ounce of it is pouring into how sacred your body, your mind, and your spirit is, and your energy, that you gatekeep your energy, that you say the things that you want to say, that you say no to the things that you don't want around you, and that you just take care of yourself. And taking care of yourself doesn't mean to like bypass, you know, those heavier emotions, but really to sit with them, to understand them, to learn from them, but don't over intellectualize to the point where they just become stagnant energy, but it really just be responsible with yourself. All the things that you want so badly are going to come to you because you're in this vibrational state of gratitude for who you're already standing in. And so that's really helped me, just understanding that like things can arrive to me the more that I take care of myself, rather than like, I want that thing so badly, how can I burn myself out to get it? How can I convince that boy to stay? Or how can I convince this job that they should hire me? Or, oh fuck, I forgot I had mascara on. Okay, it's fine, we're so hot. Yeah, just commit to a life of self-betterment, commit to a life of joy, and make sure that you don't use that betterment as a distraction from how innately worthy you are already standing in, or how innately worthy you already are, but that you love yourself so much that it only makes sense to nourish and nurture yourself more. I hope that makes sense. Being that it is the full moon in Leo, and I am once again a natal moon in Leo, born on the full moon in Aquarius season. Yes, I just have to remind you again. I think what has really been my secret, and some could call this narcissism, but I have made sure that I am the main character of my coming of age film, and that I am the casting director, I am the producer, I am the star. I am living a life for an audience that is always rooting for me. And that sounds insane, but it is honestly, it is the fucking key, yo. Because that gives you permission to realize and understand that everything that is happening for you and not to you. Two people can have the same exact experience, but if one of them is living a very dim and grim and diluted life where everything is happening to them, they're going to suffer much more than the person that is pouring vibrancy into their experience and romanticizing every part of it, seeing the signs, the synchronicities, paying attention and being present, and ultimately understanding that every single thing that happens to them, the pitfalls, the rock bottoms, the curveballs, the losses, all of that is ultimately advancing them in their hero's journey. It's teaching them something that's going to come in handy on season 3 or in, act 4, scene 5. It's understanding that it's happening for you, and that if you're gonna grieve, honey, grieve in good lighting. That's been like my quote this month. It's just like, understand that the universe and the audience is always rooting for you, and they're rooting for your advancement, and you deserve the world. And sometimes you kind of have to be given something that you care so much about and have that thing be taken away to build a deeper sense of strength so that you can arrive in yourself more fully, and that you can appreciate when the thing that you actually are deserving of arrives. Because the thing is, as I am going through the process of letting go, right? I'm letting go of an idealized relationship that never even came to fruition. Whatever, it's fine, Jasmine. That Pisces Venus of yours is really just something, isn't it? I've reflected on the fact that there have been so many points in my life where I thought that I had the best that it could get. Like I was, in the best kind of love that I could be in, or that, I had the best kind of job that I could ever get. And for some reason or another, I lose it, or I'm forced to let it go, and I think, oh fuck, but that's as good as it's gonna get. That was as fully as I could love, or that was, as aligned with what I want as possible. And I lose it, or I let myself let it go. And I will admit there are times when I prolonged that letting go process a bit longer than comfortable, because, I yearned for its approval again, or its, return, or I don't know, I just kind of harped in that replaying of what I wanted it to be, what it could have been. And I will say that eventually, when I really did let myself let things go, especially the things that I thought were as good as it was gonna get for me, I got something so much fucking better. And maybe it wasn't, right away, maybe it looked different than I was used to, but it was in all ways that matter, right? So like that full body response, it was always better, always. And so I've gotten really comfortable with letting things go, with releasing control, and that means my own form of identity, relationships, homes, just, and especially narratives that I've taught myself. I think letting myself forgive my dad was so liberating, because it allowed me to be forced to kill a story that I had fed for so long, that I had built an identity around for so long. And so just let things go. Just let life be fluid. Ride the waves of emotion. You're not always going to feel incredible, but how boring would that be if life was just this flatline, mundane experience of joy? Because I don't know if we'd recognize joy if it was always saddened. We recognize joy when we experience contrast, and contrast is what strengthens us, what makes us elastic, and what teaches us. And so I've gotten comfortable with whoever I arrive in the morning. I kind of wake up in my body within the first 30 seconds. It's hey, today we're hype. Today we're not feeling it. But it doesn't shift how I show up for myself. No matter if I'm feeling excited or not, I make sure that I give myself the tools that I need. And those tools shift, right? It means journaling and meditating, but also it means, okay, I need to sit in this. I need to lay down and just kind of bask in and wallow in my own self-pity for at least 20 minutes before I do that journaling. It's making sure that you're in a constant dialogue with yourself, and that you're being honest, and you're being so radically protective of what you need. I am in a place where I am not going to surrender any boundary, or just forfeit any form of peace for myself in order to appease or make someone else comfortable. And that is important. I think if you've arrived at 26, you're arriving to 26, and you haven't already redefined what being selfish means for you, it's definitely time to do that. Because I think society has demonized being selfish, because I think when we're standing in a state of autonomy and self-curated peace, there's not a lot of capitalization that they can get off of that. And so understanding that saying no and being so unwavering when it comes to your boundaries is the most it's the most radical act of self-love that you can give yourself. And I am on the other half of my 20s, so committed to making sure that every ounce of the way my energy is utilized nourishes me back, and does not drain me, does not deplete me, and ultimately is not a form of settling. There's no form of settling that I am feeding in this era of my life at all. Professionally, romantically, expressively, I'm just not going to settle for anything that doesn't align with what I believe my worth to be. And I just believe that I'm innately worthy of the fucking sun, moon, and stars. I'm a rock star, bitch. And if any of me being boisterous about how much I love myself is like triggering at all, because I've been in the place where I would watch someone speak so highly of themselves and be like, okay, and I realized it's because I was uncomfortable with admitting that I wasn't feeling that way about myself, and I wasn't allowing myself to feel that way about myself. And so I make it a point to be like really loudly expressive of how much I love my own company, and my solitude, how much fun I have getting to be with myself and getting to be myself and getting to live the life that I've built for myself. Because if it triggers you, it is your body saying, hey, look at this. Hey, look at this. Like, because I think this is the baseline setting that we're all kind of supposed to be at, and we don't give ourselves permission to bask in the acceptance of how great it is that we get to be us because of conditioning and comparison and wanting to arrive at a version of us that does not exist, instead of nurturing and honoring who we are standing in right now. And so, yeah, just look at that. If any of this triggers you, look at it. And not on some, like, my haters are my biggest enemy, but like, I just, I really want everyone to feel this way. I really, really, really want everyone to feel this way. And I want to say that yesterday I cried maybe 4 times. I went for like a bike ride and I was like crying, and I felt like it was unsafe to ride my bike while I was crying, so I like stopped at a tree and I just sat under it and like let myself grieve. And I just like this radical self-acceptance does not mean that I am like feeling this high all the time, but rather that I am moving with the ebb and flow of emotion. Understanding that at every given moment I deserve the best of me. I deserve to show up for myself. So yeah. In summation, 26 feels really fucking good. It feels like I'm in the sweet spot of honoring what my inner child wants, because ultimately, my friend Sierra said this, but like her approval is the only one that matters, and I am living a life that she is just so enamored by. I know that. And I'm standing in the version of me that 19-year-old me could have never even fucking imagined, and what 18-year-old me was imagining would be happiness for me looks so radically different from what happiness actually is for me. So like I said, let stories that you've told yourself and identities that you've let yourself be married to, let them die if they need to die. But I think when it comes to like 22-year-old me and 21-year-old me, I'm so grateful at how far they got me and how much closer they got me to who I'm standing in now. And I know that there's a future me that is so grateful for the things that I am committing to right now. But I will say that what's really released me from the chains of my own misery is just chasing a version of me that I wanted to arrive at so badly, instead of watering and nurturing who I was standing in that moment. I know I've said that like at least 4 times, but I just can't stress enough how much of a game changer that was for me. Just letting myself be okay with who I stood in, and making sure that within that self-contentment, within the wholeness, which means the acceptance of my shadow and my light, of my loneliness and my gratitude for solitude, and the parts of me that are warm and the parts of me that are cold, and my inner child and my sexual self, and like in all of my innate juxtaposition, I am whole because I accept it all and I integrate it all and I love it all and I take accountability and I hold myself accountable. I say my sorries. I force and I honor my boundaries with myself and with others, and I just see myself as sacred. I see my body as sacred. I make sure that I eat foods that feel good, but that I don't deprive myself of like yummies, because I absolutely was going through an eating disorder at like 23. So that's like a really important lesson that I'm now standing in. It's like letting myself enjoy foods and like not thinking that I need to punish myself if I eat something that like isn't gluten and dairy free, because orthorexia is a thing, which I have talked about on this channel, but whatever. Moving on, the point is that honoring my physical body with movement, with lotions, with essential oils, making sure that my physical environment is pristine and that I'm lighting my incense and I'm, you know, I'm making sure that my inner world is reflected in my outer world, and yeah, just ultimately I'm just making sure that every part of me I deem as sacred and that I'm treating it as such. And that means making sure that the words that I want to say are heard, and that's not by like caring about how many likes or views that I get, but rather just making sure that I'm standing in my authenticity and saying them. I'm being brave enough to say them, that I'm being brave enough to say no to what feels good if I know that ultimately it's settling, which I am learning very loudly right now. And being brave, understanding that, like, you know, moving to Europe by yourself, and this time I don't want to have roommates when I go. I want to like live on my own in a studio in Madrid, and that's a little scary, but like, I don't know, sometimes the thing that is standing in between you and like, you know, the next evolved version of you is a form of fear, and it's so important to recognize when that fear is a call to action, but also realizing when there's friction. And I was just talking about this with someone recently, but like, if there's something in my life that is not easy, I respect it and I leave it. And what I mean by that is that I'm someone who enjoys challenge. I think that's where we grow. I've mentioned that 7 times. I love obstacle. I love overcoming obstacle. I love the opportunities that life calls for me to be brave. But I also respect friction, and when you are trying something and it's not working out. And for an example of this is that I was trying to move to Miami for a while, and I couldn't find a place. Everything was so expensive, and then I did find a place, but then like last minute I couldn't have it anymore. Like, it was so obvious that like there wasn't an energetic flow here. Everything about it was uphill, and if something is uphill, respect that and walk away from it, and say, okay, there's a redirection that's trying to happen here. How can I allow that to happen? And so me respecting the fact that like this isn't, like, clearly there's some sort of like energetic block here. Reflect on whether that's an inner belief that you need to work on first and foremost before calling in something, because ultimately we manifest from our own sense of self-worth. So if you don't believe that you are worthy of the thing or the relationship, it's not going to arrive until you address what is the root cause of this limiting belief. How can I address that and rewrite that narrative so that the flow begins to move more fluidly? But also recognize when you are forcing something that doesn't want to come through. And I think I was forcing myself to move to Miami when I think I would be much happier in Europe right now. And so I'm just going to honor that, and I'm going to move with that, and that feels right, and that's flowing really beautifully. So you know, yeah. Okay, I have rambled long enough, and I hope that I made sense at some points in here. Just all in all, Jasmine, whatever version of you is watching this, I'm so proud of you. I love you. I am taking as good care of us as possible, and you know, I think the world of you, babe. And if you are watching this and you are 26, you're arriving at 26, you're leaving 26, you're thinking about 26, or maybe you just want to know, what's this 26-year-old talking about? I hope that you're basking in self-curated peace, and I hope that you find yourself worthy enough of curating that peace and understanding that that peace looks like whatever you decided to look like, and it doesn't matter how anyone else in your life views that peace. If it's peaceful to you, honor it, commit to it, stand in it really radically and boldly. And know that there's no version of you that you need to arrive at. There's only a skin that you are standing in that deserves all of the nurture that you can give it. So yeah, I'm sending you all my love. I was gonna promote a workshop, but it's happening tonight, and by the time this uploads, it's okay, whatever. If you wanna work with me one-on-one, I do spiritual counseling sessions. I also do astrological readings and many, many more things, because I'm a manifesting generator and I can't seem to pick a route. You can reach out on my website at jasminekylene.com, or follow me on Instagram at jasminekylene for more conscious content. And yeah, sending you love. Bye.